Welcome to the Worldshapers, conversations with authors about their latest books. I'm your host, Edward Willett, and this episode's guest, Jenna Greene, talking about her new children's book, Summer of Rocks. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Worldshapers, the podcast where I talk to other authors about their latest books. I say other authors because I am myself an author. My name is, as you can see, Edward Willett, and I'm the author of more than 60 books of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction for readers of all ages. My next book will be Fireboy, which is coming out in June of this year, 2025. And it's a middle grade YA fantasy novel, modern day fantasy novel, which I'm quite excited to get out there. So look for that. That will be coming out through Shadowpaw Press. Shadowpaw Press is my own publishing company, and it's a traditional publishing company. I publish a lot of different authors in a lot of different genres. My most recent books include A Hello and Theories of Everything, which are both the literary short fiction collections by Saskatoon authors, award-winning authors, David Carpenter, and it wrote Hello, and Theories of Everything is by Dwayne Brenna. So those are both out right now if you're interested in literary short fiction. My next title actually will be nonfiction. It's a reprint of a book called A Cupboard Love, a dictionary of culinary curiosities by Mark Morton. And I'm currently editing that and actually really enjoying it. It hasn't been in print for 20 years, but it's pretty timeless as it talks about the origins of some of the weird words that surround culinary matters. Mark Morton is a very well-known nonfiction writer, and also wrote The Headmasters, a YA science fiction novel that I published last year. And then coming up after that, in addition to my book Fireboy, I have a new science fiction novel called Gods of a New World from Ryan Melsom. He's an Ottawa author, and that one ties in with the billionaires and trillionaires in AI and how they're reshaping the world. In his book, they're basically becoming gods. So that should be an interesting one to bring out. And then I have some more literary books in the fall. There's a new poetry collection by Glenn Sorstad, a Order of Canada recipient and one of Canada's best beloved poets, and another short fiction collection, literary short fiction by an Alberta author, Betty Jane Hegarat. There's also a couple of reprints coming up. My own Magebane, which was written as Lee Arthur Chane, will be out this fall in a first ever trade paperback edition. It was originally published by Daw Books in mass market paperback, so I'm looking forward to bringing that out. And a couple of others, The Night Girl, which is a modern day urban fantasy set in Toronto, and Waiting for the Piano Tuner to Die, which is another collection of literary short fiction by a Saskatoon author, Harriet Richards, whose novel The Lavender Child I republished last year under my reprint imprint in the Sky Books. So, well, actually, no, that one was under Shadowpaw Press Reprise. I'm moving all my reprints to the other In the Sky Books. So Magebane will be out under In the Sky Books. Anyway, that's what I've got going on. So there's lots. I'm working on another novel myself for a publisher that expressed interest in it. So that's the sort of thing I do. However, I also host this podcast. And this episode's guest is an author I've met a few times. She's from Alberta. And let me introduce you to her now. You may have just noticed an edit there. That's because I didn't actually have the bio in front of me, but here it is. Okay. Jenna Greene has been writing since before she could hold a pencil, building stories with her She-Ra Princess of Power action figures and My Little Pony toys in her basement or on long car rides. When she could pin a tale, she composed poetry and short stories, finding that she was best at writing novels. Her first fantasy story, Imagine, came to her when she was in her first year of university, and she drafted it between essays, midterms, and reading assignments. Once finished university with a BA in English as well as a B.Ed, she began her career as a teacher and also found time to return to her writing. And she has now published about 12 books. She's having moved to teaching younger students, as well as the addition of a daughter in her family. Jenna has recently been inspired by children's books. And in 2021, her first picture book was released, Winston, the Well-Dressed Wombat. Many more writing projects on the horizon. We will talk about that. And we're talking today about her newest book, a children's book, called Summer of Rocks. So let's meet Jenna now. So Jenna, welcome to the Worldshapers.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi. We were just talking that we have met a few times over the years, and you even interviewed me once on your podcast. So, so yeah, it's it's a large country, but it's also kind of a small country when it comes to things like writing and publishing and stuff like that.
A
So
small
you're
community.
yeah, small community. You're based in Lethbridge,
Yeah.
and we were just talking about Wordbridge, which is a wonderful literary festival that I went to last year. I won't be able to come this year, but if it's still around next year, I hope I might make it over there because that was a good time last year.
And we love having you.
When is it this year?
April 12th and 13th. Actually, it almost matched up perfectly. Like last year, I think it was April 13th and 14th, and we managed to keep it almost exactly the same.
Yeah, I'll be flying back from Ottawa on the 12th, so it wasn't going to work out. But yeah, this podcast will be live the week before that. So if anybody's watching or listening and you're in the Lethbridge area, you should check out Wordbridge if you're interested in writing and all that good stuff, books and such. So we're going to talk about your new book, Summer of Rocks. But first, let's talk about you. Tell me
Oh,
about yourself.
me?
Yes, where you grew up and how you got started with
Um,
this crazy thing with words.
I grew up in a lot of different places around Vancouver. So I was actually born in Burnaby, BC, and lived in Port Coquitlam and Victoria. But I've lived in Lethbridge since I was 8, so I definitely feel like, Lethbridge is my home base. But those early childhood memories you have, like they're very poignant. So there's always a part of me that like longs for the water and the ocean. And
Mhm.
anytime my family travels anywhere, they know I'm just going to be in the water for hours and hours and hours. You know, doing my thing while the children are tired and ready to move on. But yeah, I live in Lethbridge. I'm the president of Wordbridge that we just talked about. I'm a teacher, teaching a really small school. So I teach grade 1, 2, and then I also teach grade 7, 8. And I don't teach any of the grades in between right now. It's just a little, people think it's really weird, but honestly, the littles and the, preteen teenagers, they actually have a lot in common. Other than maybe height and reading level, they're pretty much the same beast. So I don't
You're
really see
probably
that much of a difference.
how long have you been teaching there?
I think I've been teaching in total like 19 or 20 years. I've been out in the school I'm at right now about 6 years.
So
I've
you'd
worked
be
in a
seeing your grade one
yeah.
and twos now coming back to you as grade 7 and 8s.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of the students I taught out in Tabor are now my student teachers that are coming back, which is that one hurts a little bit on
Yeah.
the age register, but it's still nice to see them.
Yeah, it's yeah. Um, I've acted with because I do a lot of musical theater and stuff, and I've acted with people when they were kids, and then now they're on Broadway and stuff like that. It's like, no, they're just these. No, does make you feel old. So, how did you
Yeah.
get started writing?
Um, I think I've been writing my whole life. I wrote my first story on a typewriter, if that doesn't date me that much, my mom's old typewriter. So I think, I don't know, grade 2, grade 3.
Do I
I
look like somebody who
remember
did work on a typewriter?
yeah, I remember my grade 4 teacher reading to the class a story I wrote. It's just always been a part of me. Um, and then when I was like 16, 17, I started to take it more seriously and got a few, poetry, short story publications. And then I've just kind of plugged away at it ever since. I've never stopped writing. It's just that the success meter goes up and down. I tried to be a poet for so long and I do not have any skills in that area. I'm too wordy. They kept telling me that. I was meant for novels, and that's okay. But I tried to be a poet for quite a long time, and guess it just wasn't my form.
Most of us start as readers if we become writers. So I assume you were a big reader as a young person.
Eventually, I was actually a struggling reader for a little bit. I have a really late birthday, so I was like 5 in grade 1 and really shy. So
Mm.
it took me a few years to figure out how to read. And then once I knew how to read, actually not be shy enough to act like I wouldn't read aloud. I used to be shy. That no one believes that because I talk more than anyone in the world. But I used to be very painfully shy. That's all changed.
Well, when you did get into reading, what kind of books did you read? Were there some that really made an impact on you?
It's hard to say because back in my day, you didn't have a lot of choices. You had Sweet
No.
Valley Twins, Sweet Valley High, Babysitter's Club, which I did love. And then it wasn't until you got to high school that you had like the giant selection of books and everything. But when you're like kind of that middle grade age back, in the 80s and 90s. They didn't have as much variety as they do now. You had, was it Fear Street or
Mm.
something? A lot of choose your own adventures. There just wasn't as many. This wasn't as many back then for that middle grade area.
So, did you study writing formally at any point, or is it just something that you've done?
I have a degree in English. I don't know if that I don't remember, practicing a lot of writing back then other than essays, but being the more exposed you are to literature, the more you learn along the way. So I studied everything from, you know, ancient English with Chaucer and the Fairy Queen and all modern literature, which got a little weird in the 50s and 60s, children's literature, American and Canadian literature, everything. So I think that really helped. And then I went into ed and I became a teacher. So
So,
I'm exposed to more literature there.
and um, when did you start writing? And for publication, when did you start getting published? I guess that's the way to phrase that. How did you break
Yeah,
in?
well, that's tricky because my first publication was when I was 17, and it was like it was not a Chicken Soup for the Soul book, but like a spin-off from the makers of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So and then my first book that got published, I wrote it in university. Don't know how I pulled that one off, but it didn't get published for like another 7 or 8 years. So,
Hmm.
people always ask, like, how many books have you written? I'm like, oh, billions. How many have got published? Oh, like 12.
Yeah, not the
Um,
same number.
exactly. So I'd say about 10 years ago, I started to get books published and more frequently. And then things picked up even more again in the last couple years. But yeah, I'd say about 2015, 2016, uh, things started to really come together.
And has your main focus been on children's books? Have you written other things?
Yes and no, in that I write for children from like ages till whatever, right? I have picture books, children's books, middle grade books, YA books, but I don't write for adults. I don't understand them. I top out at 18.
So,
Although we all know most YA readers are adult women, but my characters still stay as teenagers.
do you find that being a teacher has helped you in writing believable young people characters?
I think so. I hope so. And then, I was in YA for a long time and it's very close to my heart and I love it. But now that I have children, now I'm starting to go back, to their age, right? So I wrote a few picture books when I had littles, and now they're more into those chapter books. They're actually both reading my book right now, which just melts my heart. Uh, but I remember my first picture book because, little kids, 3, 4 years old, they don't understand books like without pictures. They're
Mhm.
like, where's the pictures? Where's right? So I had my first picture book and I was like, look, it's got pictures, it's got words, and look, mommy's on the back cover. And all they said was that, I looked prettier in my profile picture, like my author photo, than I did in real life. I was like, that hurts the soul. I mean, they're like, "Yeah, you're wearing makeup and stuff on this picture, and we see you at night, and in the morning." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, let's talk about the newest one, Summer of Rocks. First, I guess, tell me about the book. What's the book about? I have the blurb, but you can do that.
So the book follows three sisters over the course of a summer. It's set in 1990, so it gives you a nice look into that kind of. We didn't have um, iPhones and iPads. I think I got a Gameboy around that time, so it's pretty high tech. Yeah, three sisters over the course of the summer, and they follow their father. He's a geologist, and so they have to travel with him while he does his work. And so they're out in the wilds of BC, traveling up north to the Yukon and back, and looking at rocks and minerals and doing all that. And it's based on my childhood doing the exact same thing. I only have one sister in real life, but I tried to capture the different ages we were when we went through all this because we did this our entire childhood.
So your father's a
I
geologist?
He is. So, yeah, he's done more than 50 years of field work. He's retired now. He's 80. But he's done being out in the field, but just years and years. And he was in charge of exploration. So he was out finding sources, looking at claim sites and things. Um, Out in the bush is how he called it. And we went with him. Otherwise, we wouldn't see him for, the whole summer.
Hmm.
And it's funny because my dad's a scientist, my uncle's a scientist, my sister's a scientist, my brother-in-law's a scientist. I have a cousin who went rogue and became a mathematician. Uh, but I am not a scientist in any way. I appreciate science, but I don't understand it. Or and I became the writer,
You're the
So I'm
black
a little
sheep.
bit of the yeah, I am the I got an aunt and a few cousins that kinda understand me, but they live far away. So, out of my immediate family, yes, I'm definitely the neon pink sheep. So, uh, I know that not all the geology facts in there are gonna be 100% accurate, but I did try my best.
So, what was the process like for creating the book? This podcast for a long time, and still to a certain extent, talks about the writing process. So, with this book or any of your books, how do you begin? Do you do a detailed outline? Do you just start writing, or how does that work for you?
Well, they always say there's plotters and pantsers, ones that plot
Yeah, there's
everything to the
pictures.
I'm right in the middle,
Yeah.
right? I know how it begins, I know how it ends. I usually know the middle, and then I kinda make my way. This one was interesting, though, because I was trying to bring back memories, like, trying to remember from, 20, 30 years ago and trying to get information out of my dad, and he's like, "I don't remember that was 30, 40 years ago," and trying to get geology facts and geography facts out of him. So I ended up really going to my sister and being like, "Well, what was your perspective? What is your point of view? It doesn't have to be 100% accurate with these stories, but what was your impression? What do you remember?" And so we just sat around and we brainstormed the big stories that have lasted over time, right? My dad's fight with the porcupine that, like he tells that story. It's been decades and he still tells that story and he's still mad at a porcupine, right? Or different hikes we went on or different animals we encountered that just really, really stuck with us. And I went from there on that one. And each kind of sister had their own arc in the story, what they learned.
So, some of the stories are true or retold versions of true stories.
They're all true. They're just, writers give the truth scope. Um, I think the timeline is really what's fictionalized. Things were shortened into the events of a summer or something that might have happened to me when I was older, gets moved to when I was younger. But all the places that the girls visit in the story, I've been to. All the events that have happened to me. But your memory changes things a little bit over time. So it's all based on real stuff.
Did you have to get out a map and make sure you got distances and places and everything so that you could
Yeah, I have it.
take the
I have
trip
it
that you want?
downstairs. Yeah, I was, like, tracing the route and then, drawing, like, mineral deposits, where would they go, and what yeah, yeah, I did I downstairs.
So, did you write out some sort of outline to work from after all this?
You'd think I would, but no. I just and I admire those that do, and I understand everyone has a different writing process. Um, I tend to just kinda go where the story takes me. I
So, when do you write?
yeah.
You're a teacher, so you're busy. One reason we're recording this on the weekend is because you're busy during the week when I often
Mhm.
talk to authors. So, how do you find time to write? Where do you do it?
Well, sometimes I just don't. Report card season, I don't write a thing. It's just not gonna happen. This summer, I've written some summers I write a book, sometimes I write 2. Um, I try during the week to open my laptop 3 to 4 times a week, and sometimes I'll write for 10 minutes and feel like, I don't have it today, and other times I'll write for an hour and a half. Um, I am really busy. I teach, I coach, I run committees, but the big plus on my side is I'm very efficient. Um, and I have a long drive to work. And while I do pay attention to the road, I am often have some time to, mull through characters and mull through scenes and kind of hash things out so that by the time I do get to my computer to write stuff down, the scene's already formed. I'm not sitting there thinking what will happen in this scene. I kind of already have it. Now I just have to write it down.
Yeah,
So
not all
that's a
writing
benefit.
takes place at the keyboards. A lot of it happens when you're doing other things. I'm driving is like that for me. I've plotted entire novels in some fashion on a long drive, and
Mhm.
yeah, I pay attention to the road, but I must admit there has been a time or two when I'm arriving somewhere and it seems to me like I got there faster than I should have. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I plotted a novel, on the way back from When Worlds Collide. It's a 2-hour drive back from Calgary, and I had to actually pull over on the side of the road and write some stuff out on an old envelope and some receipts. And then, yeah, by the time I got home, it was all formulated. It's a whole series now, and it's completed, and yeah, so praise When Worlds Collide conference for inspiring me on that one.
yes, another great Alberta
Mhm.
uh, literary conference, which I've been at. I missed the first couple, but I don't think I've missed one for a long time now. So, and looking forward to being back there this summer as well. So, once you have something written, considering you're kind of you're pantsing it a little bit. It sounds like. What does the
Hybrid.
rewrite process look? Do you and there's all these other questions like do you have people you show this to and get feedback, or how does that all work for you? The whole rewriting and revision process.
Yeah, I don't have any beta readers, but I have a really trusted editor and I love her. But before I get to her, I go through it. And I used to, when I started writing, I kept everything, every sentence, every paragraph, because I didn't have the confidence that if I deleted something or cut something out, and then I realized I needed something to replace it or needed it back, I didn't have the confidence back then that I would be able to recreate that writing magic. But now that, I'm into this a little bit more and I have more practice and more successes, I'm a pretty ruthless editor.
Mhm.
I just chop and move and I teach English. So, I mean, I'm absorbed with stories all the time. So I'm always in that daily practice. So I find that my narratives aren't really off, right? It's not story structure I really have to worry about. It's more maybe a little bit of pacing, but just, how it's being expressed and does it make sense? So I go through that. And then I do have a wonderful editor named Tasia, and she takes wonderful care of me. And she always teaches me stuff. She always has little notes, and I'm always learning things that I feel like I should know as a writer, but I often don't. And I'm like, oh, what's that? Right. So she's a big help. But I think I told my grade 7/8 the other day, they asked how many times do I edit a book? And their guess was like 3. And I said, well, you need to multiply that by like 5 because by the time you're done and it's published, that's where you're at, if not more. But that was my estimate on
Yeah,
how
and
many times. Yeah,
it's harder to tell now too because I mean I'm older than you are, so I was definitely working on a typewriter when I started, and that was literally drafts. Like you typed out an entire draft, and then you went back with a pen and you marked it all up, and then you retyped it, and so you could say exactly how many drafts there were. But now, of course, on
right.
the computer, what I'm working on now, I don't know. I had to go back and rewrite some stuff and throw out a page or two here and there because I don't have any problem with that. And it's is that a draft, or is it, I haven't finished the first draft, I'm already revising some stuff, and it's all just kind of one big
Do you
schmear.
have them saved as, like, final draft 1, final draft 2, final draft, final real draft, final draft, final? 'Cause
Sometimes it has worked
I
like
do.
that. Yeah, and I like that. No, like this is really the final draft, or final draft, or yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never quite the final draft is what it usually seems to be. And then once you get the page proofs, you discover there's still things that you
Yep.
that you have to
Yeah.
correct. So, well, which brings me to the publishing side of things. The publisher of this book was not one I was familiar with, a Canadian publisher named Wandering Fox, right? And
Yeah,
there
it's an imprint of Heritage House out in Vancouver.
was this a new publisher for you?
This is my 2nd book I've published with them. The first book I published with them was, in October of 2023, and, they published it now without a name. And I kinda lucked upon them because, I've been working with small presses and smaller than smaller presses,
I
and
read
they're
one of
like
those.
right? Yeah, and so, I mean, they're not one of the big 5, but in terms of Canadian publishers, they're pretty up there, and I think I just hit a Canadian story because Owl Without a Name takes place in Coaldale at the Birds of Prey Center. So a very Canadian story. Um, their, children's imprint, Wandering Fox, hasn't been around that long, and I think I just hit on something with that one, and then they like me, so they let me publish another one.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the kind of stuff they're publishing, thinking, "Hey, I've got a story or two that I could write and submit there." So who knows? Because I write for young people as well, not entirely, but quite a lot of my next book coming out is for middle grade readers. So, what kind of feedback do you get from your readers? Young people, do you do school presentations and things like that? And what kind of response do you get?
I do, and what's never happened before, because writing, primarily YA, is a little bit different than writing for the younger grades, but now I'm being a featured author for One School, One Book. And as a teacher who's run that program or been involved in that program, or my children do it from their school, it's a wonderful honor, and it feels like a big milestone. Like, oh my gosh, like a whole school is reading my book, and that's never really, well, it's never happened before. Not even not really, but so Owl Without a Name, Bow Island in Alberta did it last year, and two schools in High River, Alberta, are doing it this year,
Oh,
and it's just, seeing their art projects, like, all their little owl, like, very cute. And, Summer Rocks is set all throughout BC and a little bit into the Yukon, so maybe some BC schools will do it, and that would be really cool. But yeah, I've started to do more classroom stuff. It always feels like a little bit of a conflict of interest because I don't wanna market to my own school or
right.
my own school division. I just give my books to my students for free, but, other divisions, I'm like, "Well, that's fine." Yeah, and so they'll, pay for a sub to go to my school, and then I go to their school, and I get to talk about just my books all day. What's better than that?
And tell me about some of your other books that you published. You mentioned a series, and how many books do you have out there at this point?
I think I think 12. So I have 2 picture books. One that I wrote with my aunt. She's the only one kinda like me in the family. She's a non-scientist, and she always wanted to be a writer, and she said that, back in the days, she sent out 2 submissions and they got rejected, so she quit, and I was like, "2? Do you mean like 2,000?" Like, I have books right now that are just people are like, "Nope, nope, nope." And so we just co-wrote a picture book together and got that published and made her whole dream come true. I have a lot of YA fantasy, a lot of YA dystopian. As much success as I'm having with the younger students, I will never leave my YA dystopian because I just love that genre. I love reading it, I love writing it, I love studying it. So I have the Reborn Mark series, which is done, and then I have the book Silencers that came out just in September. So I got to write the sequel to that still, but yeah, a lot of YA under my belt, and it's just recently I've moved to more the middle grade area.
And what are you working on now?
I'm actually working on 2 projects because that's how I roll, and, I'm writing just at the early stages of a draft. I'm writing a YA adaptation of Romeo and Juliet taking place in 2 rival fast food restaurants, so we'll see how that goes and how
I
that
hope they
plays
don't
out.
end up dead at the end.
We'll see, I can't, no spoiler alerts. And then I'm co-writing a middle grade book with Jessica Renwick. So she's also an Alberta author, an Alberta middle grade author. And so we're trying something new. We have 2 characters, 2 sisters. So she writes from one point of view, I write from the other, and we go from there. And they go for an adventure in the wilderness. So we're not done our first draft, but we're getting very close. And it's been really interesting co-writing with someone. I'm
I've never
finding
done
it, yeah, first time for me, and I really quite like it because she'll end her chapters and then I just read them and I'm like, "Oh, I know what I'm writing next." Like there's no I don't know how we're doing it. There's a little bit of magic behind the scenes to that, but it just seems to lead into my chapters so easily. Easy to figure out what it's gonna be about.
that. And where can people find you online?
Oh, everywhere. I am a social media obsessive. I uh I get 10 minutes at night to myself where I just doom scroll. But Jenna Greene, Green with the E on the end, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, um, I all of them. And then also all through the WordBridge stuff. So I'm the president of that. So if you can find WordBridge, you can find me as well. And I have a website, jennagreene.ca. I think I do pretty good on the social media. My coworker's 28 and she harasses me about my technological abilities, which are poor. I just figured out how to do folders on Google Drive. But I think with social media, I do not too bad because I'm pretty sure I was one of the first 10 people to sign up for Facebook because I was in university when it started. I was their primary market target. I should get an award or a pin for that.
Something, at least a certificate.
Yes, I really want one.
Well, Jenna, thanks so much for being on. Oh, the book. What's the release date? I think it'll be out before this goes live, but
The release date is April 1st.
yes.
It's
So this
not an
book,
April Fool's joke. It's a real release date, April 1st.
the book is already out when this goes live because this will be just the Sunday after that. It'll go up. So yeah, that'll hopefully does great things. It looks like a really fun book and the sort of thing I would have loved to read when I was a kid. Even if it does have girls in it, I would have read it. So
Well, there's
so
the dad.
yeah, and the word bridge is coming up, so remind that people about that again. The following weekend, then I guess it'll be you said the 12th and 13th,
Yes.
and Lethbridge, and I presume if people are in the area, they can come.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can buy tickets in advance, but you can also buy them at the door.
And we also mentioned When Words Collide. That's later in August in Calgary, and I always recommend that when it comes up because that's one of the best writing conferences I've ever gone to. So I
Yep.
urge people
I'll
who
be
are
there.
interested to go there. Yeah, I'll be there too. I'll say hi.
Okay.
So thanks so much for being on the World Shapers. It was a great chat. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Thanks for having me.
So thanks to Jenna for that conversation. That was fun. And again, if you're in the Alberta, the Lethbridge area, be sure to check out Wordbridge. And if you're in anywhere really, you should make your way to Calgary for When Words Collide in August. That's a great event that I highly recommend. And that's it for this episode of the World Shapers. Let me just do the usual things where I tell you about where you can find stuff. You can find the World Shapers at theworldshapers.com. That's where you'll find links to social media and synopses of the books and the book covers and all that sort of thing. There's also a link to the audio-only version of this podcast. You can, of course, find the World Shapers on YouTube, which you may have if you are seeing my face right now. That's at my website, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Edward Willett. You can find all of the World Shapers podcasts there in a playlist. You can also find it on X at the World Shapers, and you can find it on Facebook at the World Shapers. You can find me online at edwardwillett.com. Just my name.com. Oh, it's over there. There. edwardwillett.com. You can find me on X at ewillett, on Facebook at edward.willett, on Instagram at edwardwillettauthor. What am I missing? And on various other social media platforms. If you look for me, you will find me. You can also find Shadowpaw Press, my publishing company, at shadowpawpress.com. You can find it on X at Shadowpaw Press. You can find it on Facebook at Shadowpaw Press. And you can find it on Instagram at Shadowpaw Press. That's it for this episode of The World Shapers. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back in a couple of weeks with an interview with another author as I continue to talk to them about their latest books. Thanks for watching or listening.